What's good, Emo? So, I've had a couple conversations with different musicians this past week, and one of the things that came up was structure. And the reason it came up was because a lot of people are playing in church bands and they're realizing that their church band doesn't have a structure. And it's a thing that if you go to school for music, it's frustrating, but it's also a thing that kind of makes sense when you consider musicality and musicianship and artists and, spirituality and stuff like that. So if you're interested in this conversation, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. But I'm gonna try to break down my perspective on the church musician and maybe the issues that they run into. So I was a church musician once, and pretty much my experience was awesome. My experience was great. I learned a lot, met great people, played cool music, and you know had a really good journey and traveled and stuff like that. It was awesome. But I think a lot of the issues that most musicians run into aren't specific to church musicians. I think these are just typical musician issues that just get highlighted by the church musician because most of us will wind up playing in a church, for a church, or watch a church band at some point. And so for the most part, I think many church musicians, they're going to run into issues that are like trying to figure out what songs to come forth with, what songs to be prepared for, and things like that. And then when it comes to the day of the performance, there's also has to be some kind of structure as to how they're going to be presented. So if they're going to be things like changes in the set list or changes in like the key signatures, or maybe a singer's late or maybe the drummer's late or something like that, issues like that, it's not specific to church musicians, but it is a thing that again gets highlighted because it's something that most churches deal with, that if they're not considering these as issues, it's going to be like working a 9 to 5 job where like it's a problem you're just going to have to deal with. And so one of the other issues we started talking about was that most of the musicians don't read. And I don't mean like the natural speaking language, I mean music. Like they don't read music. And that can be an issue for a lot of different reasons, but one of the first two reasons I can give you is that you guys can't communicate effectively. Like we could try to learn a song by ear, but if we try to make adjustments for each other's parts or maybe learn each other's parts, we can't talk to each other. We don't have a language. We can use English, we can use Japanese, but there is a language of music that would make this a lot easier. So if you guys can't read it, you can't speak it, and then if you can't speak it, you can't talk. And so what'll then begin to happen a lot of times is you'll have a drummer that doesn't know key signatures, or you'll have a piano player that doesn't know what key the or what mode the singer is in and things like that. So you're not really going to understand these things. Now, this can be overcome with experience, but the problem you'll run into is you're limited to what you're experiencing. So if you go to a new church and they play a song you always play, but it's in a different key, you don't know the language to communicate how to get to that key. You probably don't know theory to understand the key. So you'll be banking on muscle memory, hope, and a prayer that you'll bank on playing it correctly. The second issue you're going to run into is repetition. You can't repeat the things you're playing. It's almost impossible because you don't have any type of script or nothing to follow. You don't have no sheet music, you don't have a hymnal, you don't have anything. So if you're going off of ear or a recording, that's going to change because unless you're literally practicing to sound just like a recording, you're not going to be building up any muscle memory. So again, if these are things you deal with as a church musician or just a musician in general, let me know in the comments and make sure you like, share, and subscribe.